Who is the strongest character in Dragon Ball Z? Now, when someone gets asked that question, probably several characters come to mind, each which have their own feats, statements, and arguments that might make them the strongest in all of Z. But there can only be one truly strongest character. So, who is it? Today, I'd like to analyze every major argument for who the strongest character in DBZ is, and give my answer for which one I believe to be the ultimate strongest character within the Z era. By the Z era, I mean pretty much any official media released before the return of Dragon Ball with Battle of Gods. If I included the technically Dragon Ball Z movies of Battle of Gods and Resurrection F, the answer becomes a lot less interesting, as it's obviously Whis, or if you really want to be edgy, maybe Golden Frieza. With that understood, who are the major contenders for the title of the strongest? I think there are 4 characters who have somewhat legitimate claims of being the strongest in Z. Super Gogeta, End of Z Goku, Super Vegito, and Z Broly. That's 4 characters we need to scale, so let's not waste any time and get started. But before we do, please make sure to like and subscribe. Only 11% of you are, so doing so really helps out. Anyways, let's get into this measuring of the strongest. I'll first give a brief overview of all points in their favor before heading to debunks and getting direct comparisons between them. As he's the main character of the story, let's begin with End of Z Goku. Now, a handful of people have the wrong perception that Dragon Ball Z ends with the defeat of Kid Buu, and then Dragon Ball GT begins with Goku meeting Oob, but this isn't actually the case. Z does actually end with that 10-year time skip, with Goku meeting Oob at the 28th World Martial Arts Tournament before deciding to train him. Now, since Dragon Ball Z has ended, Dragon Ball Super has retroactively inserted itself into the 10-year time skip, and now obviously Goku has surpassed everyone in Z with the all-new power-ups and forms he's gotten, from Super Saiyan God to Ultra Instinct. Even then though, at this time, this version of Goku has a surprisingly wide array of statements and claims of him being the strongest. The anime guidebooks on Goku Densetsu repeatedly refers to Goku as the strongest in various sections, El Manga Legendario calls Goku the strongest in the universe at the end of Z, and Toriyama in a Daizenshuu interview calls Goku the strongest in the universe. As for scaling, the best you can say for Goku is that if you think Oob is equal to Kid Buu, as he is his reincarnation, then he is as strong, if not stronger than him in his base form, making him hundreds of times stronger than the strongest form of Buu once he uses Super Saiyan 3. As is the case for Goku, he doesn't have many destruction feats of his own, but would just scale over all of the various forms of Buu, if you believe that previous scale to be true. Now, given how this version of Goku is really only on screen for less than 5 chapters and episodes, there's not really much else we can say for this version of Goku within canonical material, so now let's move on to the next participant. Next is Super Gogeta from Fusion Reborn. Despite having even less screen time than End of Z Goku, Super Gogeta still has a litany of arguments in his favor. Firstly, with essentially a single ki blast, Gogeta is able to annihilate Janemba, who according to the Dragon Ball website, is the strongest villain in all the movies, with second place being Hirudegarn. Janemba, according to both Goku himself and guidebooks, is stronger than Majin Buu, which depending on the form makes Janemba stronger than any enemy in the anime. Various guides, including the Daizenshuu, Movie 12 Manga, Chozenshu, and V-Jump have referred to Gogeta as the strongest fusion, invincible, or the strongest warrior. While they usually don't call him the same thing, these are all relatively synonyms for being the strongest guy around. For Crossverse feats, he's stronger than Super Saiyan 3 Goku, who shook the universe-sized afterlife while being in Hell, and guides have called him comparable to the Big Bang at the moment Goku and Vegeta fused. In short, the angel born in Hell is no slouch in regards to power, but we still have 2 more characters to cover. Next is Z Broly, and weirdly enough, with the 3 whole movies of Broly, Broly Second Coming, and Bio Broly, he might actually be the character in this video with the most screen time dedicated to him. His best on-screen statements and feats occur in his first film, as he's introduced with destroying the South Galaxy Cluster, and is referred to as capable of destroying the universe more than once throughout the film. Between each of these movies, including Bio Broly, he's stated to be getting stronger than his previous appearance, meaning technically the character in contention in this video is the sludge monster version of himself from Bio Broly, as weird as that might sound. Now, on a surface level, Broly definitely has the worst set of opponents, as he fights only movie versions of Cell Saga to early Buu Saga level characters. However, That's not where Broly's claim to the strongest comes from. The writer of the movies and the head showrunner of the Dragon Ball Z anime, the creator of numerous other Dragon Ball related series, Takeo Koyama has said in interviews that Broly is the strongest character he's ever created and the strongest character in Z. The only reason he's ever lost is simply through arrogance and holding back too much. Does this make Broly the strongest? Before we find out, we have one more contender. Super Vegito. The original and the longest time only canonical fusion between Goku and Vegeta that existed in Dragon Ball Z anime and manga. Brought forth through Potara fusion, Vegito has a ludicrous amount of statements claiming him to be the strongest. Now, many of these come from manga guides like the Daizenshu. These we can mostly ignore given that none of these other characters besides Goku exist in the manga canon. However, just as many statements for Vegito exist in anime guide materials. He's called the strongest of them all in V-Jump, the strongest warrior in history, and the most powerful character in Z by the Ultimate Battle Collection. Chozenshu 3 calls him the ultimate combined warrior, and there are just so many guides that say similar things. Essentially, if a guide material mentions Vegito, there is like a 90% chance that they call him the strongest in some way, shape, or form. With all that being said, and with each character measured out, but their statements and feats, who is the strongest? The first thing we need to understand is that determining the answer through cross-verse scaling is not going to get us anywhere. Every single one of these characters at their peak scaling are beyond what the Dragon Ball equivalent of the universal tier is. Goku and Vegeta are both stronger than Buu, Broly gets stronger after his own universal statements, and Gogeta scales arguably over a universal feat. So, instead, we have to look to the legitimacy of statements and actual inverse scaling between the four of them. Thus, the first character that we can actually eliminate from the running is unfortunately Goku, and the reason he's out is because of Vegito. While Goku is stated to be the strongest in the universe, by the end of Z, the universe doesn't have Vegito in it. Meanwhile, Vegito is specifically referred to as the strongest in history, which immediately means that Goku never surpassed him. Again, this was obviously retconned by Dragon Ball Super, but when this statement was made, Super was still years away, so this leaves just Broly, Gogeta, and Vegito. The next weakest link to fall is unfortunately Gogeta. I've talked about why Vegito beats Gogeta before, but I'd like to throw more evidence into play here. Very clearly, they both have guides that call them number 1, but it's unclear if this is referring to all Z materials or just within the anime and Fusion Reborn respectively, so we need to see when they appear together. There are only a handful of official guides that both have Fusion Reborn Gogeta and Vegito in them simultaneously. V-Jump has had them together at least twice, while Chozenshu 4 and the Movie 12 Animanga have profiles on both of them. Of these, Vegito is stated to be the strongest in 3 of them, while Gogeta is only stated to be the strongest in 1 of them. Ironically, the only one with Gogeta winning is the V-Jump one, and it is directly in contradiction with V-Jump also calling Vegito undoubtedly the strongest, directly above a picture of Gogeta. This statement in favor of Gogeta also implies that the fusion dance is stronger than Potara, which we know is absolutely not true. The Movie 12 Animanga is especially embarrassing, as this is literally a book about Fusion Reborn and shows its entire story, and yet Vegito is still called the strongest in history. This leaves Broly versus Vegito. Broly already arguably has precedent over Gogeta himself, as the movie guide Daizenshu refers to Broly as the strongest, getting him over Gogeta without any of the author's statements. And speaking of Koyama's statements, it truly comes down to if you think they are a legitimate reflection of the final product of Dragon Ball or not. And if you think being the showrunner of the anime gives him precedent over the fiction contained within it. Now, I really don't want to get into it, but Koyama has been harassed by power scalers like crazy on Twitter, and he's gone back and forth on statements multiple times on multiple things. So here's where I sit on this personally. I think his statements regarding the movies are very valid, given how he fully wrote them, as opposed to the anime, where he wrote a couple of episodes, but he mostly just oversaw their production. Regardless of what conclusion you reach, there is going to be a contradiction somewhere. There are just too many only official guidebooks and interviews and statements to ever create a 100% cohesive power scale. But if I had to rank them, Vegito comes in at number 1, having statements straight up calling him the strongest in Z, and everything we've talked about is just so much stronger in totality than everyone else's claims. Number 2 is Broly. He's the one statement champion, but that one statement pretty clearly puts him above number 3, who is Gogeta, and while he's more often compared to Vegito, Broly I think just more reasonably fits in between their level of power. And finally, Goku comes in 4th. While he has statements calling him the strongest, they are always in comparison to characters other than these 3 guys. So there you have it, my reasoning for the strongest characters in Dragon Ball Z. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you do disagree with my takes, you can join my Discord, or let me know how I was wrong in the comments down below. See ya.